Hello and welcome to the Comparesoft ERP Podcast. Today we're getting practical about AI-native ERP, what it really means, how it differs from AI-enabled ERP systems, and what triggers finance teams to migrate from QuickBooks, spreadsheets, and legacy systems. I'm joined by John Cusick, who started his ERP journey at NetSuite, leading customer implementations and specializing in subscription billing. He's now president of EchoPark Consulting, helping businesses implement modern AI-native finance stacks. We'll unpack what AI-native implementation looks like compared to more traditional systems, and how to handle the main concerns around data quality, governance, and trust. John, it's great to have you on the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So before we get into your current role, John, your previous ERP experiences lay in subscription billing and leading system implementations working with a large ERP vendor. How did you get into that specifically, and what sort of problems were you typically solving on a daily basis?
Yeah, coming from more of a technical background, information systems degree, it was a great actually path right into consulting. Working for that company early on. Started working with a lot of software companies, which eventually, as time went on, SaaS became a thing. Companies started using software a little bit more for subscription billing versus just doing normal contracts. So I started to utilize that knowledge of what I knew about software companies and applying that to subscription-based companies, which came with a lot more challenges. Right. I found it very interesting. I mean, mostly because of the fact that there's a lot of companies out there that are challenged by the fact that they have to work with billing at volume, which was something that was not as familiar at the time with just software companies. So a lot more complex rules, dealing with amendments, the introduction of ASC 606 over my career. So now you have a change in how you recognize revenue, at least in the US, along with IFRS 15 and the rest of the world. So really wild ride. Lots of really cool problems to solve, especially as the whole industry was changing.
Yeah, and obviously you're a part of those implementations as well. So when you look at more traditional ERP implementations that you were a part of, what was the most, the common root cause of pain in that process?
Usually data migration. I mean, I think in most cases, especially in the modern age, data it's being used for a lot of different things. But specifically for ERPs, dealing with data that is, billing data or revenue data has a big impact on how you eventually, if you go public, say in the US, you're going to have to provide very clean books. So a big part of these implementations that I would say caused a lot of pain is making sure your data is in the right spot. A lot of dirty data had to be cleaned up, hard decisions to be made as to what you need to keep versus what you had before. And then from there is just change management. I mean, just like anything else, you have to move people into a different day-to-day. And for them, they have to commit to that learning. So that sometimes becomes really, really difficult, especially for traditional ERPs, because of the fact that it's such a long implementation timeline. You're not going to be able to just switch it over next day. You have to commit, do your job that you're doing now, and then adjust as time goes on. And then lastly, I would say paralysis. A lot of times these types of companies that are going through this change, it's one that they're going to do every 20 to 30 years, depending on the situation. I think that's probably changed in today's age, but there's just so many nuances to deal with, right? Exceptions to the rule. And that creates a lot of tech debt as a result. And so I think for a lot of these companies, they were trying to decide what to do in the moment. And with all the decisions they need to make this system right, they had a lot of pressure. And that created a lot of customization, which is what a lot of these companies are dealing with today.
Excellent. And I completely agree on the change management side. It's so tough to make sure people aren't falling back to spreadsheets, something they're really used to,
It's tough. It's very tough.
So jumping forward, John, you're now president of EchoPark Consulting, where you assist businesses in implementing AI-native systems. So when we say AI-native ERP, what does that mean in practical terms? And how can a can a buyer tell if a system is AI native or AI enabled?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's going to be harder and harder to make that determination as time goes on, as companies jump into the fold, which they are, and for good reason. I think the AI movement today, there's a lot of things that we gain as companies from utilizing AI. So to answer your question directly, AI native really means that those solutions are built with that AI functionality a lot of times, and it's built on top of it. So, usually the biggest way for you to tell is the AI being used in the system as just a chat bot. There's systems out there that just throw a thing on top, said, hey, you got all your data. Here's a chat bot you can talk to that is going to help you understand more about your data. And it's not a bad thing. But the difference is with AI native solutions is that they can do things like trigger workflows or fundamentally change maybe the objects within ERP so that it works better for your business. And they also give you a lot of opportunity to do things like maybe notify someone when two bills are the same on the same day from the same vendor, for instance. It creates a lot more opportunity for users to utilize the functionality in a way that's not just, hey, what's my data that I need to adjust. It actually helps you do the adjusting, which is really important.
And I don't know if I'm being too naive about it, but could you see it as AI native is more agentic, and whereas AI enabled is more generative?
Yes, correct. And I think that's, as time goes on, I think these companies will get to be a little bit more aggressive in how they utilize AI within current systems that are out there, legacy systems. And I think that they will get smarter. But if you look at it today, the ones that are built on AI natively, they are pretty far ahead in the sense that they can get to do a lot of things that maybe is a little bit more of a lift for some of the legacy ERPs today.
And where do these AI native systems sit in the market today? Like who is sitting down and actually considering them?
Oh, it's interesting. It's really, really interesting now too, because, you think about it, you're like, oh, state of the art, all these things, brand new shiny toys here. And these companies, they're building ERP. That's enterprise level applications, right? So currently the challenge that they have is that they're an inch deep and a mile wide because they're being built from scratch. Now they're being built a lot faster than our legacy ERPs are, but they're still being built right now. And it's very, very early stages. So they're building a lot of stuff, but they don't have the depth and knowledge or the things that have been built on for many, many years from different customer enhancement requests, things like that. So I think what we'll see in the next couple of years is that it'll start to work up market. But today, if you look at SMB, the S of SMB, the small companies, are probably the best utilized or the best served to utilize this tool, right? So a lot of you'll see the leading AI native or AI enabled ERPs are sitting in the, servicing companies between 2 million and 300 million ARR roughly. And they're more towards services or SaaS-based high-tech companies because, they don't have things like products, like when I say products, more like inventory, manufacturing, WD. They don't have that functionality today. So a lot of that functionality ends up being something that is having to be farmed somewhere else. But for those companies that's where their biggest, I would say, part of their business is, they're underserved yet by AI native ERPs today.
So does that mean the customers are typically migrating from places like QuickBooks, spreadsheets?
Yes, still, and that's even interesting too, because you look at, because the market has changed and you have more options in that stage between 2 to 300 million. A lot of companies made that decision to jump to a legacy ERP from QuickBooks or from spreadsheets, and now they're stuck with maybe high cost. In general, a subscription-based model for some of the legacy ERPs, and maybe they have failed implementations that have heavy tech debt. So they're like, well, makes a pretty good case for me going to an AI native ERP. It's gonna be cheaper. I'm gonna be able to clean up again, and I get to use some of the AI functionality right out of the chute. And I have a system that's maybe not as much overkill as maybe going to a legacy ERP, which is built for maybe more of a north of 300 million
Mm.
company, which they are not today. So yeah, it's really interesting because there's a mix between that and the companies that are coming, they're at the point where they're outgrowing QuickBooks.
Would you say that's the biggest pain point for that migration? They're quite overkill of the system they've got.
Yeah, I mean that's that's one, and then it's the fact that you're probably looking at a system that is maybe messier than they expected it when they came into the implementation because of the problems we talked about earlier. Change management took a lot of time. People didn't really get into it. Maybe they're utilizing it in a very customized way, so it's not really servicing what they need. So for them, they're like, well, throw their hands up and let's try something that's going to be actually out of the box what I need and what is going to be evolving as time goes on because it's AI native, and I know that it's going to change as I grow and change my business.
Mm. And what are the most common misconceptions you see when you get inquiries about AI native systems?
Yeah, I think a lot of times companies will come and say, hey, it's going to automate everything for me. It's going to automate everything for me. AI can they can replace so many people. Like, I think there's a lot of companies out there that say like, hey, that's the advantage that I'm getting by going with AI. AI is powerful. Don't get me wrong. And it's as dumb today as it will be ever in history, right? It's going to get smarter and smarter as time goes on. But it still needs a lot of direction. And I think these companies, especially in finance and accounting, there's a lot of structure. And so they need that human brain interaction to make those important decisions. And by having more of an AI assisted work, they can actually help with creating automation that is very specific to what they need and not just automation for automation's sake. The other thing is that it's starting from a depth of functionality that legacy ERPs have. No, that's not the case. Like we just mentioned, inch deep, mile wide. In this sense, these companies are being built, especially the ERPs of the legacy ERPs, have had all that experience for a long, long time. And so they are at a position to be able to provide you a lot more depth, more customizability. With AI native ERPs as it stands today, you're going to allow for that adaptation over time. But for now, it is going to be the basics.
So it's important for these people to remember that, there still needs a human in the loop. That's essential still. Yeah.
Yeah. It's still important. And especially, I mean, I would say in like accounting and finance specifically, this isn't just a small business function. It's one that could impact whether your business stays alive or not. So it's a big deal, and you don't want to hand over those keys. You can utilize the tools. You can take it for a drive, but there should still be a human behind the wheel.
And one thing that really stood out to me, what you're doing currently at Echo Park Consulting is your goal to make implementations smarter, faster, and more enjoyable. Now, I know that's gonna be music to people's ears hearing that. What does an AI native ERP implementation process look like? How long does it take on average? How many people are still involved?
Yeah, I mean, in classic, I would say consulting fashion, it depends in a lot of ways. But I think, basic structure of how the implementation looks at Echo Park, we really have 5 stages that we go through. There's a planning stage, migrate and reconcile, integrate, train, and go live. Now, since AI native ERPs are more configurable and less customizable, the highlight is really on that data, right? So we, for instance, use kind of a white glove approach where we're pulling some of that data out of your legacy system, entering it into the AI native ERP, and then reconciling it, having you reconcile it, and we're on to the next. So it's a lot of pulling of data, making sure that it's in the right spot, that migrate and reconcile, phase, like I said. Integrate is specifically around being able to integrate with a lot of these best of breed solutions around, which I'd like to talk about a little bit later if we can. But the native integrations that are being built into these AI native ERPs today is a lot better, smarter than it ever has been for any of the legacy ERPs. So for us, integrating is really helping you make sure that things are connected in the right way, in the right fashion. And then training is very different in the modern age than it has been in the past, because you have AI there sitting there as a, chat functionality, for instance, as a minimum, to answer those functional questions. So you can kind of, teach a man to fish in the sense, or teach a woman to fish, basically giving them the tools to be able to say, hey, these are the questions you can ask. These are the prompts you can use to help learn and train. But we're here and we also help train you on the basics of how you utilize the system. And then go live is very, as you would expect from any other ERP, with the sense that we're connecting everything for the first time. We're putting things into place that can allow for you to start utilizing the tool, but you're also trained on how to use the AI, which is really the push there.
What on average, what sort of timeline are you looking at there?
Oh yeah, about 3 to 4 months. But
Wow.
again, it depends. It can be
Yeah,
it can
of
be
course.
shorter depending on your timeline. But again, it comes back to that. We talked about that with the legacy ERPs. It's still there's a commitment from the client or the customer in the sense, like, you need to be able to commit the time to be able to support things, the nuances that come out of the data, because data cleanliness drives a lot of this. So if you have dirtier data, it's going to be a little bit harder it's going to take a little bit more time to go through it, because you need to make those decisions with our help, of course.
And if we look at those 5 stages that you mentioned there, where are the biggest time savers in that process versus more traditional cloud ERP implementation?
Yeah, it's interesting. About 3 of the 5, I would say integrate because of the fact that there's more native ERP. There's more native integrations that are built into these solutions. So you kind of take away some of the need for, like, iPaaS solutions, for instance. So there's less time and effort that's being spent to try to connect things. For training, like what I just mentioned, more or less, like, utilizing some more tools you have. There's more better help documentation as well, because it's AI native from the get-go. So all that data, how it was built, is right there ready for you. But then migrate and reconcile is really where I think a lot of the time saving is, because we can utilize not just AI within the system that you're implementing, but we can do it in our implementation process, which we're starting to do. So utilizing it to scrub data, to help with the process of actually taking the data out of the system, putting it into your system, doing that kind of change over time so that you can reconcile it.
So we're using it to cleanse data as well before
Yeah,
it's put
of
into
course.
the system. Yeah.
Why not? Yeah.
Exactly. And obviously you've mentioned already, these systems often start finance first. So how should buyers think about, the add-ons, inventory, HR, CRM, different modules like that?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think I kind of mentioned the term earlier, but I really subscribe to the idea of what I call ERP plus. And what I mean by that is more or less companies are looking at a solution today that's gonna cover all of their business processes. And because we have that inch deep, mile wide kind of experience now with the ERP itself, you have to utilize these other best of breed solutions around it. So I think having that as something that you expect going into the buying process will help you determine what systems are actually important to you, what business processes are most important to you. AR automation, AP automation, taxation, FP&A tooling, CRMs, all of these solutions are you go with the best of breed and connect it might be the right answer. So I would say those are the ones that I really focus in on a buyer. Don't think of your ERP as everything, because you don't have to. And that's really the answer.
Yeah. And so there are a lot of conversations among ERP experts and the transition to AI native systems. Some are completely for it. They see that is the future, while others are more fearful, I'd say, when it comes to data governance, AI workplace policies. Yeah. So if we just take a hypothetical, what actually happens if AI is applied to finance processes where the underlying data is inconsistent or loosely governed? It's not clean.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes more of a scrubber for you in a way, right? I think about it this way too. Like finance, if you look at the people that are actually utilizing ERPs today, accountants and finance professionals are expert auditors. Let them utilize the tooling, the AI tooling, to help find those inconsistencies and fix them. Because your data is not something that you can just like, oh, magic wand and fix. Like, you still have to, if you have dirty data and you're in that position where it's, it's inconsistent, you don't have that great governing when you bring it into the system, let the AI be the assistant to the people that actually know what makes it that way, and help them be the people that make the fix, do the change, and so that you can feel confident that you're gaining a better set of data governance moving forward.
And so, I mean, you might have had scenarios where a CFO has come to you and said, look, our data isn't ready for AI. And I'm guessing that's your response. You use it, help get their data ready.
Yeah. I mean, get it ready, plug it in, see how it can be done. You can rip off the Band-Aid, and I think, because like, that's the thing, is that I think if people are scared of their data, they're like, oh man, like, we can't make this, like, it's because it hasn't had the opportunity to actually be looked at. And yes, there might be times where it's like, hey, this is not a good situation. This is not data I want to use. But to make those determinations, let AI help you in that process, because that's laborious. And you want people to see it in context and not in a situation where they're having to do it themselves and try to look through all the little pieces, or saying, let's not use this data at all. The chances are there is something to be salvaged, and you use the functionality that's out there to help salvage it.
And in your experience, do CFOs take a lot of convincing on that side to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I would say there's a different set of individuals that are looking at AI native solutions at all, and I think that, CFO specifically, and really any C-suite, it's a challenge. I mean, like, what are you going to take that leap into AI? Is it something that you feel is going to help you and push you forward in your business or not? And I think asking questions like that helps you determine where your risk level is. Because like I said, AI is as dumb today as it'll ever be. And so as time goes on, I think there's a lot of opportunity for these, for people that maybe are not ready to jump in, to look at this again and say, yep, I feel more confident. So I think it's an okay question. It's something that I get a lot, but the sense of it being the same answer every time is probably not the case, because time will evolve and change.
So we spoke at the beginning about the difficulties of change management, once a system has been implemented. I'm curious, how do you set up governance so that, AI-driven automation stays safe after go live? It doesn't drift into shadow logic or workarounds.
Yeah. I mean, that's the cool thing about these AI native solutions today, is that they're built with context in mind. They're in more of a vacuum with bounds, right? And that's a big part of their role, I think, in the market, is to be able to build those bounds for you. So being able to create the governance, I think, is a lot easier than you would think, because of the fact that you're not pushing in a bunch of extra stuff that doesn't actually apply, and you're not creating automation that is going to get you caught in a bad situation. Because, there's still, like I said before, you still need AI automation to be you still need to have human interaction with it to make it really work best. And these solutions are built with an infrastructure to help control that, so that it doesn't get you in trouble.
Another of the worries that I've seen online in particular are hallucinations, which obviously in finance is a non-starter. So how do these AI native systems avoid that in calculations and reporting?
Yeah, I mean, kind of some of the way I just mentioned too. I mean, I think, to me, that's one of the largest things, the largest roles that these AI native ERP software companies have to play in the marketplace. They have to be there to help create those bounds. And I don't subscribe to the idea. That's, another reason why I don't subscribe to the idea that AI will make SaaS obsolete or make software obsolete, is because it still needs to be controlled and put into context. And these companies are building AI agents, right? And building specific endpoints so that the actual user can feel more confident in the data, and not see it as something that is, that might not make sense because of the fact that it's not in the right context. So it really trims down that possibility of hallucinations, which I know is a big concern in the space.
Yeah, awesome. And how would you recommend to finance teams, to CFOs, they test their data trust before they go live?
Play with it. I mean, I think there's a lot of companies, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier too, that just don't have, that don't see the benefit in actually trying it, like going through, pushing through, and it's becoming more palatable today than it ever was. You're not making a purchase of a legacy ERP that's going to be in the millions of dollars to then not have it work for you. In this case, the stakes are a lot lower. Get in there, try it, play with it, do your day-to-day in that environment, feel it out, ask those questions that you maybe have wanted to ask your ERP through AI. And so then that will make you feel more like it understands what you're trying to do. Because I think finance and accounting folks, at least ones that I've talked to, they have a structure, but they are challenged by a lot of the things that they don't know. And being able to make that easy for them to do by utilizing AI in these tools can help open their eyes so that they can trust that what they're actually putting in place is something that is going to work, help them answer the questions they wanted to answer, and be able to make them do their job a lot easier.
Yeah, awesome. So it's very similar to, you're in the trial, the demo stage of a selection process. You want to take your real world data into that. You want to see how it acts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's a huge advantage too. You get a chance to really put your hands on something that is going to potentially completely change how your business is going to run for years to come. You would want to do as much as you can to understand how it could interact with your specific data.
Excellent. So, John, if a buyer is searching for an AI-native ERP today, what should they look for that's different from a normal ERP selection? How should they run their demos differently?
Yeah, it's very different. I mean, AI-native ERPs are really changing how companies work. So you have to flip it on its head. You need to look at them as something that is going to evolve as you go. They're not actually releasing functionality once or twice a year. They're doing it once or twice a day in some cases. So there's a lot of functionality and evolution that's going to happen over time. And you have to expect that what you're buying today is not what you're going to be seeing here in the next couple months, for instance. And you have to think about it. I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but think about it as ERP Plus. The ERP that you're getting is probably not going to give you everything you need for your full business process. So I think, looking at that from the lens of, hey, what are the processes that I think make more sense for me to farm out to other systems that are best of breed and that can natively integrate much easier, more streamlined than it would be with an ERP, like a legacy ERP. Then you also have to think about that ERP from the lens of how it'll be used and not how it's going to be built out. That's probably the biggest one, is like, a lot of legacy ERPs, which is not a bad thing, is that they're evolving or evaluating that from the effect that they are going to build it the way that they want it. It's more customizable versus configurable. And I think that's the thing, is that, a lot of companies will come into it with a mentality that, oh, I'm buying something that is going to be used for many years to come. And that's the truth. But if you're looking at a legacy ERP, you have to look at it from how I'm going to customize it, most likely, because you don't have that release. You don't have that change that's going to happen over time. Whereas with the AI-native ERPs, you're going to expect that things are going to change, and are going to change quickly, and you're going to evolve, and you're going to get the best of what they have, but in a much quicker fashion.
Excellent. And so if a buyer team, they're sitting down, they're building out a shortlist, what requirements should be at the very top of their list that are specific to AI-native ERP?
Yeah, it really has to be future looking. And if you're looking at an ERP or an AI-native ERP today, you're probably more forward looking in the space. And so I think that there's really three things. One, does that AI functionality answer your most nuanced finance or business questions? So, challenge that when you're looking at them, like, hey, what are the things that, the questions that maybe would take 15 to 30 minutes of creating a report or poking around in a legacy ERP, could that be answered by AI in a couple minutes? That saves tons of time as time goes on. So think about that as you're looking at these. And then look at how does that AI functionality allow for you to analyze your data more effectively or more efficiently, I would say, to close your books. Because that's really what you're getting. Accounting software at the end of the day comes down to how quick you can close your books and how accurate it can be. So closing your books is the North Star, and moving to a newer ERP, regardless of whether it's AI or not, you need to have that functionality, and AI native systems should be giving you that. You should be closing books much faster. So if they're not, it's not moving the needle enough for you. And then thirdly is, does that AI native ERP show an aggressive product roadmap utilizing AI? Because like I mentioned before, that's a big part of the advantage is that it's evolving. If you're buying a system that is AI native and they're not growing at a pace that actually makes sense for the fact that they're using AI assisted functionality, then it's probably not the right system for you. And because they need to make that promise, right? They need to make that promise that it's going to evolve as time goes on, and that it's going to grow and it's going to be able to support your challenges of tomorrow, not just the challenges of today.
And like you said, it's at the dumbest point it possibly will be. You don't want that system stagnating there.
For sure.
Exactly. John, you've been brilliant. I've really enjoyed this chat.
Same.
Thanks so much. You've brought such a grounded perspective to what can sometimes become a very hype-driven conversation about AI. I'm sure a lot of finance ERP teams, they're going to think more clearly about when it comes to implementing AI-native ERP systems. So, John, thank you so much again for joining us.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great. Thank you for the time, Ryan, and appreciate it.
Awesome. And thank you all for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.